So Cosby's been in the news. You know, you've been very vocal about the injustice in terms of how that specific trial took place. You're not caping for Cosby in general. You're not saying he's innocent of all the charges, but you're looking at the detail of that specific case, which most people are not doing. And you're saying like, hey, this guy did not get a fair trial for this specific case. And what's interesting, as kind of the more fanatical elements of the Me Too movement, of radical feminist movements, as they start to kind of come and start to kind of touch the black community more and more, why would you say that the black community now believes in the justice system? So is it, I believe in the justice system. I don't believe it when the cops are on trial and they get off. I don't believe it in all these other cases. You know, most of these cases, I see racism in a lot of these cases. But Cosby comes up, and at least, you know, in the kind of social sphere, people believe in the justice system all of a sudden. They believe he got a fair deal. What's going on there?
I think there are people, you know, who I think agree with the verdict on Cosby because, let's just be real.
Well, first, the question is, did they read the details like you? Did they go into the case specifically?
I think there's different levels of how deep people go. I went pretty deep because I was really curious about this. I think that you have to start the conversation off about Cosby by admitting that he probably did something bad to somebody at some point. He probably did, right? But then if you really want to be intelligent about how you break it down, you got to think about, what does justice really mean, right? There's different definitions of justice. There's justice according to our legal system, which means innocent until proven guilty. It means guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, etc. But then there's like mob vigilante justice, which was pretty much what, you know, it's human nature. It's been used against us on many occasions. It's a situation where you think, yeah, that motherfucker probably did it, and we're gonna go get his tonight. He don't need no trial. We're gonna come get him, and we're gonna have him hung and castrated by the morning, right? That's another type of justice, right? In the minds of some people, you know. So, please go ahead.
Yeah. Do you see a connection between OJ gets off, and I believe he was guilty of murder? Personally, I'm not talking about the specific case. Just kind of, you know, looking at the facts. I believe OJ is a murderer. Okay, so OJ gets off. The community, I believe, kind of taints the jury in terms of injection of race, and there's a lot of politics. This could have helped Cosby if he was connected to the community, I believe, at this stage. But essentially, OJ gets off, and then he gets caught up in this robbery. It looks like this bogus charge, and then now they got him. And do you see a similarity between Cosby has been doing all this all these years? This case may not be rock solid, but because he's done so much in the past, we're going to get this here this time.
It's very similar, yeah, because, you know, in both cases, you know, they were really found guilty by the American public of harming a white woman. If either one of those men had harmed a black woman, they probably would never have been on trial, or they certainly wouldn't have had a conviction or anything like that. I think that's one issue. I think also you're looking at two guys who have become endeared by white America to a level that most black people will never understand. You know, remember, OJ really thought he wasn't black no more because white people loved him that much. He was doing commercials and movies and you know, he was really in like this whole other world that most black people never get access to. And I personally don't want access to that world, but he was in a Kanye West kind of world, you know, where he was completely detached from the realities of being black in America. Well, Bill Cosby, you know, he's the Jell-O pudding guy. Watching Bill Cosby, he was never funny to me. I was like, there must be a lot of white people who laugh at this. This isn't funny. His stand-up is like watching Seinfeld for me. I don't get Seinfeld. But, you know, Cosby Show, great show. I think Bill Cosby did hold it down to a point. He held it down in the way Henry Ford used to do this. Bill Cosby loved black people in a way that said, I love you if you agree with me that my way of seeing the world is the right way, right? So if you're black and you want to be middle class and be like Dr. Huxtable and want to go to an HBCU and live engage in good Negro behavior, whatever that is for him, then he was good with that, But if you deviated, like if you name your son Kareem, you remember the pound cake speech, or if you get locked up on a charge, or if you have some form of radical blackness that he can't understand, then he condemned you. And I think that was a problem because that reeked of arrogance. That reeked of him having a complete inability to accept other points of view. And that caused him to have a lot of enemies in the black community that I don't think he had to have. A lot of Bill Cosby, a lot of Bill Cosby's problems with black people could have been settled if he had learned the value of real, honest humility. He didn't have humility. He was very judgmental, and that caused people like Dyson and others to come after him.
Do you believe he systematically sexually abused women?
Do I believe it?
Systematically, not like he did it one time. Do you believe? See, when I looked at some of this Cosby stuff, a woman said that she voluntarily wanted to have sex with Bill Cosby back in the day. I believe it could have been the 80s. And what she said was he wanted the terms of the sex, she needed to kind of be asleep. So she's not accusing him of anything, this woman. But essentially, her conclusion was he had some type of sexual fetish where he wanted his women unconscious. And when you look at the pattern, in terms of the Quaaludes and kind of some of the other stuff. Like, you look at the patterns, it looks like he had some type of deviancy where he liked intercourse with unconscious women, which poses a legal problem in terms of nowadays, right? This is a legal problem.
That you know what? If that's the story, I've not seen that story, but that confirmed something I had suspected, but I did not know for sure. I had always thought maybe this guy has a fetish where he likes to have sex with women who are unconscious. And the danger of that, right, is that even if you're doing that legally, even if you're saying, hey, I want to give you a pill, put you to sleep so I can have sex with you while you're sleeping, you're opening up, right, you're opening yourself up to a lot of problems because that person could later on go back and say, I never consented to that.
Yeah, and so I had no feeling when I should have had feeling for Bill Cosby, I believe, because he's done a lot of good in the community, a lot of good, right? When people make a mistake or they do something crazy, right? Sometimes we can look at the whole picture, their whole life, and then judge kind of comprehensively. But when this case goes down, and I looked at not like one speech, the pound cake speech. For many of you out there who don't remember the pound cake speech or are not aware of it, Cosby suggested that, the black community, you guys are always crying about cops, killing your people. And he used an example of a black boy stealing a pound cake. And he said, why did the boy, you guys are out here marching, why did the boy steal the pound cake in the first place? And my reaction to that is, look at this massive hypocrite that you are going out stealing possibly a lot of cakes, unconscious cakes, and he's coming out to the hood. In my mind, he's going out to the projects, he's going out to the hood, attacking these poor women, the black community. He's being judgmental. He's Jesus. He's moralizing against the community. But when you look at his history, including confessions he has made that they used to convict him this time in terms of what type of system was he setting up, meaning that it's documented that Cosby would look for broken women. This is a very sick guy. He's looking for vulnerable, broken women who need money, women who need an opportunity in Hollywood. He's exploiting the vulnerability in women systematically, I believe, based on the information. And this guy's out here moralizing and banging against our people who are poor, living in poverty. Why are you stealing food? You shouldn't be stealing food. Why are you crying about getting shot by the police? Don't steal food in the first place. So when I look at this stuff, and this guy obviously is a multimillionaire, and he's banging against, a lot of our people. There's no emotional connection, I believe, for a lot of other black people when he's convicted. When the white man finally gets you, there's nothing in the black. There's no connectivity. Maybe more so for the younger generation, but the connectivity I don't think was really there for Cosby in a way that he needed it.
Well, it's, live by the sword, die by the sword. So, live by the white man, die by the white man. It's like, okay, if that's the route you're going, and that works for you, then that's the life you accept. We tend to be supported and protected by those with whom we form relationships and connections. So if I'm married to one woman and I say, hey, I'm going to divorce you so I can go marry this woman over here, then that means pretty much that any problems that I have in this new relationship are my problems to solve within the context of that relationship. I can't go to my old wife and say, hey, honey, I got myself into some shit with this new girl. I need you to come have my back. She's going to be like, no, you dumped me. You had no interest in me. So Cosby, unfortunately, I wouldn't say he dumped the black community, but I think he definitely dissed the black community. I think that there's a huge sector of black people that he offended unnecessarily. I think there are a lot of people, though, who, shower him legitimate and deserved praise for what he did with Fat Albert. The educational agenda of that show was remarkable. Nothing like that today. What he did with the Cosby Show, there's nothing like that today. Yeah. Different world, nothing like that today, right? $20 million to Spelman, ain't no celebrities doing that today. So I think that he deserves credit for that. But remember, who's that going to appeal to? That's going to appeal to the educated class of black people, middle class and up. You're going to get that and appreciate that. I think those who are connected to what's happening, in the streets and in the community and in the hoods around America, they can't point to a lot of things that Cosby did that really supported that group of people.
You mentioned Spelman. As you mentioned, Bill Cosby, he gave $20 million to Spelman College in 1988. They defunded a professorship in Cosby's name in 2015. If you were the president of Spelman and you started to see these legal cases and you started to read the cases and the testimony of Cosby, would you have defunded the Cosby professorship at Spelman?
I guess the question is, what does defunded mean? Does that mean they just took his name off? Or
yeah, you kind of take the name off. Like we're not representing Cosby with this program.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one because, and I know this is unrealistic, but
just to clarify, it's a professorship endowed by Bill Cosby.
Okay, so if defunding means that I'm giving the money back, like if Cosby created,
we're not going to name it this. We're not going to have this particular professorship. They're like the Bill Cosby professor or Cosby professor.
Well, if you're going to take off Bill Cosby's name, you need to take off Bill Cosby's money. So if you're funding that professorship with money that Cosby put up in the endowment,
we already spent it.
Well, that's the thing. If it's technically,
I'm saying they say we already spent the money.
Well, that's the thing. If it's an endowment, then that would mean it's supposed to be like a pile of capital that's used, where the interest from the capital is used to fund.
But any endowment, at least for HBCUs, a bigger proportion of the endowment money goes towards funding ongoing operations than just investing. So I imagine that a lot of that money has been spent.
Yeah,
in terms of those specific.
Right now, if they spent the initial capital, then that's one thing, right? But if they did what most universities are supposed to do, which is to preserve the capital, and you live off of the returns from the investments, right? For the most part, then there should be something left. There's still a core there that funds that professorship, right? It's almost like if Cosby gave them a house and they say, we're renting this house and we're living off the rental income. Well, if you take Cosby's name off the house, you get back the house. You can't, that's the weird thing to me, that these universities that are taking Cosby's name off of their, school, okay, that's fine. That's your right to do that. But I think that it is also the right of people that have any common sense to stand back and say, hey, man, you need to get the money back.
If I was president of Spelman, I would defund it if the facts showed that he was a systematically abuser of women. And it doesn't sound like, hey, if I take money from you, that's fine, but all bets are off if you're going around shooting, people. All bets are off if you do something like really crazy that could really hurt the institution that you're investing. If it could really hurt our reputation, I think an institution would be in their right mind to have the ability in the agreement to defund something or disassociate myself. That if you want to start, banging against black folks or banging against women, or you want to start doing something that are not consistent with our values, we can take this name off. It's conditional, right?
I think they should. I mean, if it's in the agreement and they can do it, legally, then I guess they're going to do what they're going to do, and it's fine. I think, it's if you took this man's money, and the agreement was, that we're connected now. That means if my ship goes down, your ship will go down too. Then I think it's disingenuous to say we're going to take the name off, but we're not going to give the money back. It may be their legal right, but it's still tacky, in my opinion.